Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well. So, today I will be starting with something new that is from the syllabus of Standard 12th. It's not just for them, it's the basic of economics, basically, the Indian economy. Basically, it is about Indian economic development. So, today we'll be starting with the very first chapter, the very first topic, that is colonial exploitation of the Indian economy under the British rule. So basically, firstly, we need to know what is colonial exploitation. Exploitation is known by everyone. So basically, colonial exploitation is something that is regarding the exploitation of population, like as labor, and the natural resources as raw material. So basically, the labor and the raw material were being exploited. That is in the context I am talking about India. So basically, under the British rule, all the sectors of the Indian economy were targeted, and that the major sectors basically will study one by one each one of them. So these are agriculture sector, industrial sector, and international trade. Okay, so let's talk about colonial exploitation of agricultural sector firstly. So, in the context of agricultural sector in India, its exploitation was basically through the system that is Zamindari system of land revenue. In this system, the Zamindars were recognized as owners of the land basically, and they were given the right to collect rent from the farmers, and even they were allowed to take or extract as much as they wish or as much as they could from the farmers. And farmers used to work on their land just for the survival purpose. The farmers used to get a minimum amount for survival. Basically, there was nothing left for with them for further investment in agriculture or for any further development of agriculture. So basically, there were three stages, there were three, not exactly stages, but there were three parts of the land revenue basically. That was the very first part, and the very minimum part went to the farmers, and the rest of the money went to the zamindars. So whatever money was collected by zamindar, that was basically divided into 11 parts, because that money collected had to be divided between the zamindars and the British government. So there were 11 parts basically of the revenue collected, and that 11 parts were divided into 1 and 10 basically. The one part went to the zamindar, and the rest 10 parts went to the British government. This was the division of the revenue collected. So this was all about the exploitation basically of the agricultural sector, as everything was taken by the British government. So there was nothing left for us to develop our agricultural sector at that time, and that led to the exploitation of the agricultural sector of India. So let's talk about colonial exploitation of industrial sector now. So if you talk about this sector before the British rule, the industrial sector in India was really well known, for its handicrafts. Indian handicrafts were famous and had very good reputation all over the world for its variety, its quality, and then it was destroyed by the British government. It was done basically in two ways. First was the foreign demand, the decrease of foreign demand. The foreign demand was destroyed for the Indian handicrafts by the way of implying heavy duty on their exports. And as heavy duties were implied, the prices of the Indian handicrafts increased, which led to the decrease of the foreign demand of the Indian handicrafts. The second was the domestic demand. The domestic demand for the Indian handicraft was destroyed by the way of implying duty free import of the British goods in the Indian market. And that led the duty free import of the British good, that led the decrease of domestic demand of the domestically produced goods, as compared to the British goods, because the British goods were quite less expensive, or the prices were less as compared to the domestic goods. So that led to the exploitation of industrial sector, basically, as the foreign demand and the domestic demand decreased because of the heavy duty on the exports of our handicrafts and duty free imports that decrease the domestic demand. Next, we'll move on to the international trade now. So now let's talk about the colonial exploitation of international trade. So basically, the trade of India was exploited through the discrimination in the tariff policy implied. That means the export done through India or by India, that is of the raw material, to fulfill the needs of the Britain, the industrial needs, that export was done totally duty free. There was no tax involved in it, and so there was no price rise, and it was cheap for Britain to import such raw materials from our country and then form the finished goods and then earn a lot. So that was the reason that our export never earned anything well. Then talk about the import of British goods. The import of British goods were done duty free as well, so as to expand or increase the demand of British goods in the Indian market, so as to capture the Indian market. So ultimately, this duty free export and export of Indian raw material and import of British goods exploited our market. So, and that is the point we call the discriminatory tariff policy implied. And that, because of that, India became the importer of finished goods from Britain and exporter of raw material to Britain. So this all led to the exploitation of the international trade, which then turned the Indian economy stagnant and backward. So this is it about the exploitation of Indian economy, and now it's the time for some facts. That is, I discussed about the zamindari system under the category of agricultural sector. So the zamindari system was introduced by Cornwallis in 1793 through Permanent Settlement Act, and it was introduced in the provinces of Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and Varanasi. And because as it has came through the Permanent Settlement Act, this system is also known as Permanent Settlement System. So this is it for this video. I hope you like the video, and if you like it, then please subscribe to the channel. And that's it. Thank you for watching the video. Stay safe, stay happy.